She sighed as she opened the door, bare all hope. She spotted somebody lying on her bed, and she recognized who that person was. She never thought of seeing here or anywhere else for that matter. She looked at somebody in her bed sleeping. Herself. The sound of opening the door woke up the other Lynn, which made her go up from a lying position to a sitting one. She stretched her limbs as this other Lynn then looked at the original. The other looked at her, not moving a muscle, not making any sound. She just sat there, staring at the original. Lynn was at loss for words, but more importantly, she was losing her mind. She wasn't able to even form even a simplest reaction. Her thoughts meshed together into a blob of chaotic feelings, a requiem of confusion. They had become unsolvable mess of questions, confusion, and fear. She tried to find a reasonable explanation for the impossibility before hers, but a person who's intelligent at that edge of madness wasn't able to conjure the logic to solve such a question. Her propaganda continued to stare at Lynn, nothing else. Her eyes weren't empty or white. She didn't have a grin. She didn't make any aggressive postures. She didn't even have any weapons on her or anything scary looking abnormalities in her body. This entity didn't even look any different from herself. There was no difference, but also no sound from the beginning. It was still standing there. After a while, Lynn opened her mouth to ask the propagander a question, but instead she started to scream. First slowly she controlled, and then it got louder and louder, making her family name proud. Her scream was so loud and so intense it filled the air with fear. It howled through the entire house. Her propaganda just continued to stare, like she was watching or something she watched every day. She was not perturbed by her screams in return, which made the original Lynn even more perturbed, and she even screamed even louder. The fact that her voice hadn't broken was a little to wonder. Her screams fueled by her breaking, and the propaganda was just staring into the cantalopous shriek of terror caused by the unknown before the young sportswoman. Lori stormed into Lynn's room with her golf club, followed by Lenny holding a hairdryer like a pistol. "What is going on here?" the oldest demanded to know. Luna then with her axe came in, pushing Lori out of her way to the ground, while Luann did the same with Lenny, armed with oversized mallet. "Is everything all right?" asked Luna. "Who is screaming? Do I have to introduce the intruder with my mallet?" Luna shouted with a giggle. "Get it?" Before anyone could groan, the rocker and the comedian then got to run over by the little pink car, driven by Lola, with Lana on the other seat as the co-driver, holding a wrench in her right and a hammer on her left hand. "Who dares interrupt my beauty's sleep?" Lola angrily demanded to know. "I hope you wrote yourself a testament." Lisa was the last one to arrive in the room, climbing into the car with Lily in her arms, who was, to surprise to everyone. Very quietly, "You were all kissed by Fortuna. Do you know that?" Our youngest didn't even start to clamor, as aroused from her journeys as the land of Morphus, or whatever you get the sleep from REM. During your rhubarb here, the other siblings looked confused, and the other child genius, she sighed and said, "You're lucky that you didn't wake Lily with your noise." Lynn had stopped screaming, and her gothic sister was beside her, stroking her leg. No one had seen her move from her bed. She just appeared beside her. "Lynn, why did you scream during the middle of the darkest night? Was a vampire visiting you?" Awoke up by the tumult, it was the son of the family who just came in the room. "I have an important meeting in the morning with Clyde," Lincoln sighed. After hearing the scream, he was quickly out of the bed. But after hearing his sisters being on their way with the lack of ensuring frightening noises, he took his time so he couldn't run into a pile of bodies like an overprotective sisters. What happened? Did Lucy manage to ultimate accidental scared and you killed someone? Maybe you are onto something, remarked the oldest. But before we can figure this out for sure, I have to ask a favor. Get down from me now. The seven sisters who had positioned herself on Lori and Lenny scattered and helped them up. Like, that was heavy, Lenny explained. That could have made Lynn totes scream so hard. Lynn was staring at her sisters. They were here, blinking. She was not alone. Lynn, what happened? Asked Lana, worried some. That scream was unusual, even for us. I went to hard rock metal concerts with less volume, told Luna the family. What happened, dude? Lynn wanted to say something casual, something chill, something cool, saying that she was in control again, but she opened her mouth and started to cry. There was no strength of her to not cry. Her entire body started to shake, like a freezing dog on a very cold day. Lynn had feared that the others would make fun of her for crying for the past, but she instead felt even several hugs around her body, warm stuff, cuddly, loving. There was even no scorn or mockery, only affection. At concern, Lynn felt safe and free to cry her eyes out. With damn broken, she cried harder than before, happy about the comfort of her family. Like, I totes don't get it. The Loud family had gathered around the room where Lori and Lenny had their domicile to sort this situation out and calm everyone down. For some incredibly strike of luck, nothing bad had woken up the parents, despite Lynn's incredible scream. Lynn was lying on her bed with her head on Lenny's lap, who was affectionately stroking her head, while Luna was stroking circles over Lynn's back with her fingers. That nightmare didn't sound scary at all, was Lenny's opinion. Dude, that was scary, alright? Was Luna's objection. Totally alone. Nobody here, and you found a propaganda of yourself? That sounds frightening to me. I would totally be scared and lonely. The sports star told her siblings about the nightmares she had, and it had been difficult for her because it didn't sound scary to her. Some alone time sounds heavenly, chirped Lola in. Only alone with your thoughts to total peace and no worries about someone running into the alleyway of your car. It was literally your own fault, protested Lori, who was sitting on her bed looking up from her smartphone. Drivers have to watch out for pedestrians. Pedestrians should know their place. I think it was scary, Lana, who was sitting next to Lori, commented. I would feel very lonely without anyone around, not even our pets. Absolute depressing, Lana sighed. And the only person you find is a clone yourself. Wait, that's the last part of my daily nightmares. Hey, protested Lola, feeling insulted. Lana then laughed at her twin, hunted her down throughout the room. Lucy, who was sitting on the ground, both between beds, with the book titled Something for Beginners. I looked it up, and the sisters, in her usual moody tone, I don't find anything interesting about the dream Lynn had. There are similar themes that cannot be combined, or the dreams that take place in such a normal-looking environment. Lisa sighed before she added, your dream sounds more epistemic and surreal at the end. I didn't know what that means, but it seems to be scarier that way. What followed was a discussion of her siblings about this strange, unusual dream of Lynn. It became back and forth of options, interpretations, and arguments of its true meaning, reaching from a complicated omens to a random chance of a very bizarre theories. Lynn was not satisfied with the answer they had came up with, but she was happy that the others had tried so hard to help her. So you were not aware that you were dreaming? Thought Lisa, who had the discussion back to the topic. Then it was normal and not a lucid dream. More coherent than usual dream. To put it for you in simpler words, normal dreams are random. Coherent, chaotic dreams are messy while we sleep. Not the coherent, clear events like in most media. You may myophilic athletic sister encountered something not many people encounter. Dreaming of your propaganda. Could you mean fear yourself? Speculated Lucy. Well, maybe you have to face yourself. You mean like in that movie where the guy talks to his own reflection? That was a crazy guy, Lola, explained Lori. Wait, you saw the taxi driver? Before Lori could ask any more questions about unusuals of Lola's viewing habits, Lyndon chimed again with a question. Can I stay the night with you guys? That question was followed by utter silence. Did that dream scare you so much? Asked Lenny, worried about also an understanding tone. Yes, I am ashamed to admit it, but the dream scared me so much. Lynn sniffled, then looked down in shame. I don't want to be alone. I want to bunk in with one of you guys. Lynn, you are strong, festy, and brave, told Lori to her younger sister. You don't really need some company tonight, all right? Lynn blushed heavily, looking down in disgrace and shame. I'm still scared. You think of me as a wiener right now, right? And Howl? Lola, scolded Lincoln. Be nice. And that wasn't your unusual cookie-cutter bad dream? It was just a surreal nightmare? And the unknown can scare us even more than anything we understand, chimed Lucy and Lincoln, and they nodded in agreement. Lenny can understand spiders, so they encountered them only to temporarily fear. But what Lynn dreamed was unexplainable. The moment it may look silly to you, Lola, but the fear is understandable for me. Most of the others agreed, even the ones who didn't even thought of it was scary and said nothing. Still prepared to be tested later on down there, promised Lola. You better not become scaredy cat because of the stupid dream. I still have nightmares all the time, reminded Lana, with her twin in a serious expression. Don't you make fun of that either. I do, too. You did? One of the day, our usual arguments. Lola tried to remember, and it succeeded. Wasn't that important? Whatever, probably just a thing that is forgotten soon. Don't think it's so much about it, Lynn. Lynn didn't even know if Lola was even considering or sympathetic, but once again she looked over at Lori, who was begging in her eyes. If you are so scared to go to Lucy, the oldest recommended, or Lincoln, never again. Lincoln then said in a stone cold-hearted tone, before then adding a softer tone, only as a last resort, why don't you come to me? Luna offered her sister while softly poking her back with fingers in an unusual massage. We will rock my bed together? Phrasing, Lisa said without looking up. Some blushed and some laughed, and the younger ones were confused. Or would you come and find me? Offered Luann. You will have a bedtime in my bed. Luann laughed when her siblings groaned, and Lisa once again said, phrasing. Hey, like, we could totes do a sleepover together, Lenny suggested. All together. No was Lori's reaction. Awesome idea, sis, Luna agreed with Lenny. No, proposed Lori. I guess I could leave the dark solitude of my bed for one night, exclaimed Lucy. No, once again said Lori, who felt ignored. Of course, answered Lenny. No, shouted Lori. I will accompany you on this night, added Lisa, static as ever. No! Her final shout of her denying finally got her attention, silencing her sisters as Lori was fuming with rage. It's bad enough with Lana's regular nightmares. This is not the Ritz. Nightmares or not, I will not stand for this behavior from my 13-year-old sister. Silence had followed and everyone felt uncomfortable, but after a few seconds Lori sighed. She wasn't even ready or upset about the situation. She just wanted to make Lynn feel comfortable. Despite Lori's generosity, Lynn had to promise that this wouldn't turn into a regular occurrence. It also helped that it was Friday, with the weekend in sight. They could live in a different sleeping arrangement for one night, so nobody's beauty sleep had to suffer. At least for the siblings who have thought more of their appearance, Lori gave the orders. Luna, Luann, Lana, and Lisa, You come to me. Lynn, Lucy, Lola, Lincoln, you could stay with Lenny. Yes, ma'am. They quickly got into more than less comfortable positions on the two beds, with little Lana positioned herself between Lori and Lenny's bellies to be safe and sound, while Lisa cuddled up closer to Lori's back, while Luann was behind her. Then Luann embraced Lisa with one hand and Lori on the other, while Lori then embraced the two sisters before her with one arm each. Lenny then solved her situation by placing Lynn in before her in embrace while Lucy embraced her roommates from behind. Lola was placed on Lenny's back, with Lincoln embraced in a little pageant queen from behind with one arm and Lenny with the good of her. If you move too much, you could sleep on the ground, threatened Lori, cradling her sisters at the same time. And no talking. Everyone just wish each other good night, then close your eyes. Good night, everyone, and I love you all. I will protect you with all my might. Several good night and sleep well were included with the good night Jim Bob for the unknown reason. Lenny and Lucy did their best to comfort their sporty sister, cuddling and telling her that she would be safe. No one will harm you, baby sister, promised Lenny as she kissed her on the head. We are here for you. I am never-ending darkness that will surround you and protect you, promised Lucy in a somber, friendly tone. Lynn then was calmed by those words. Even by ones from Lucy worked. Even she closed her eyes and, snug as a bug, cradled up together with her sisters who had laid around her protective wall. No reason why to worry, she was all home. She was safe, and she was not alone. The propaganda of Lynn observed them from out of Lori's closet before the scene cut to black. The episode alone then ends. I was speechless as the episode ended. I couldn't believe how harmless it looked at the end. This was the lost episode of Loud House. No gore, no graphic imagery, no violent deaths or the characters, no hyperrealism, no Luann or Lola going psycho and killing everyone, no all of a sudden inclusion of inappropriate material. This episode had to been tame. It was scary in a way. The propaganda of Lynn raised questions, but this was not the type of fare I used to when it came to lost episodes. I wasn't disappointed from what I found, in fact. I was astonished to find a lost episode that was breaking the mold of the usual fare. But I was surprised that I also the kind of glad that not to see known the 11 children, including the baby, got mutilated in a more gruesome way. I doubt that I would have the psychology scared for me for the rest of my life, but I kind of like the Louds, not seeing them die from deaths or something. It was eager to witness. Of course, when I tried to save the video, I could show it to the whole world, but for the unknown video host ignored all my comfort programs. I tried it for so long. I used so many different programs, but gave up after a while. Unfortunately, I was so tired after watching the episode of trying to save it all, I didn't think of using my smartphone camera to record the episode. Instead, I shut down my computer and went to bed. The next morning, I had the idea with the smartphone, and the link of the video was broken. I felt like an idiot. Only this document could tell you my discovery now. This is my story, and what do you think of this episode meant? Was it never officially aired? Will it ever be seen as an official release? It didn't come across as an episode that could break the TV ratings. Was it still too risky for management at Nickelodeon, and they forbade airing it? Did somebody from the production staff decide to upload it, but then got cold feet later and took it down? What was the deal with Lynn's propaganda, and what was the strange unsettling being returned in another episode? Was that being a friend or foe or bad omen or a good one? Why was all of Royal Woods devoid of people, but otherwise normal? So many questions I can only speculate about. What do you think? And that, my little pretties, was Loud House Alone. A Loud House Creepypasta. Written by Hatoralo. My final thoughts on the story? I honestly thought this pasta was actually pretty good. A really amazing, well made creepypasta. I do remember Space Voyager narrated this one, I believe, back in 2018. No, wait, 2019 or something. I can't really remember, but he said this story was pretty good. And I do remember Mr. Gruesome narrated this one as well as Shadow Reader, and they narrated it, and they said it was good. So I honestly really enjoyed it because I really like the fact that, it's not involving, cliches or anything like that, or, any characters killing everybody off. No, 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 no. It does not involve that, which I'm very glad it doesn't, because most of the time creepypastas do include that. Well, lost episodes mainly. But I gotta say, this story was fantastic. Honestly, I really will have to say this is a good example of a lost episode pasta. That not every single lost episode pasta has to involve gore or anything like that. This is actually a very good example of that. I mean, not every single lost episode has to involve blood and gore. It's actually pretty unique in its own way. Now, this is why I still decided to, read this story, because of how well this story is. I really do like the concept of this story, as well as the good grammar, the sentence structuring, the storyline, and everything like that. So, yeah, I could definitely say pretty good. I definitely would have to give the shout out to the author for making this awesome story. Fantastic and well made story. This one was definitely fun to read. I definitely really enjoyed this story. I thought it was neat. I really enjoyed the concept. It's fantastic. So I really would have to say, if the author manages to find this story or this video, I gotta say, I give the author props for it, because this is honestly fantastic. Really gotta say, it's really honestly fantastic. I love this story. I definitely would sit there and read it again. Pretty good story and really good, well made. So I have to say, I would definitely read this again. This story was fantastic. This is on the Some Ordinary Gamers Wiki, and it's fantastic, well made, and I definitely recommend for people who want to read a good Loud House story. I recommend you check out this story. I mean, you guys will not be disappointed once you've seen it. I've read it and it's fantastic. I mean, it's not, well, it does have a bit of maybe one cliche I did know about it. I can't really point out what it is, but I'm willing to excuse it. It's a pretty good story. I mean, yeah, the fact of Lynn being all alone without any siblings in that, and it's only in a dream. I mean, that I'd be terrified if that ever happened. Like, I'd be terrified if I was in Lynn's situation. But I definitely gotta say, this was a really well made story. I definitely would sit there and read this story again. This story was honestly fantastic. So I guess with that being the case, and with that being said, I'm gonna sit here and just say, like I'm gonna say, this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that is perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas. This is just simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating is a 10 out of 10. I definitely would sit there and read this story again. It's beautiful, well made, not cliched, like with hyperrealistic gore and blood and deaths and all that. Fantastic that, this story does not add any of that in this story. I have to say, I give props to the author for making that. This was fantastic. I definitely would sit there and read this again. Very good, well made, definitely a good story out there. So with that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out.